Hello and welcome to Old Man in Lycra. This is your mountain bike show for the mature rider. Now you won't see any of this, or even this. But this week you will learn how to change, check and reset your brakes.
So I'm here with the voice of mountain biking in South Africa, Gerald de Kock. Gerald, thanks very much for adding a bit of professionalism to the show.
Very amateur professionalism, but thanks Doug, great to be part of it, and mountain biking needs this sort of thing for us guys.
I think, yeah, that's the whole goal behind the show, is to offer something that's for mature riders.
I do, and the irony is that I haven't worn Lycra on my mountain bike for a long time. Doesn't look good on me, I tell you what, doesn't look good Lycra, but baggy pants, there's so many now out there, and it's becoming more and more de rigueur.
Yeah, I mean, the whole Old Man in Lycra really was a poke at myself, yes, and a bit of tongue-in-cheek, but it also means, you know, I'm not also wearing Lycra today because I've got the flats on. I'm trying some skills training.
I think that's something that's very pertinent to us guys. I got into the sport sadly quite late, my mid to late 30s, by which time all those energies that rid you of fear had gone, and I was now fearful, and so I rode my bike and I sort of gingerly did a little bit of technical bits and pieces. There are a lot of us who ride our bikes but don't have the skills required to really get the best out of these beautiful bikes, and we get these incredible bikes with most amazing specs on them, and I think we don't do them full justice, but as we go along, and I think some of us become a little bit fearful of taking a lesson and saying, actually, step down, set off your perch, you do need to take a skills lesson.
Right, so now we're just going to go through quickly popping the pads out, checking them for wear, resetting pistons, getting the pads back in, and then aligning your brake. Sometimes you'll notice that you can't get your wheel back in, particularly if you've taken the wheel off to fit it in your car and you've touched the lever. It pushes the pads together, so it'll make your brakes bind up. So for this you're going to need a pair of pliers, 5mm Allen key for most brakes, sometimes there's a Torx T25, sometimes a 4mm, and then this, which is a piston press. Most of you won't have one of these things at home. You can just use a plastic tie lever. Don't use anything metal on your pistons, because they are made of plastic, so you can damage them. Most brake pads have got some kind of a retaining pin. In this case it's a little split pin, so we're going to just rotate that so we can grip the end, bend it straight, so I don't feel like I'm about to pinch my fingers off. See, these are the teapot pads, so they only come out one way. Pull out the top. While we're doing this, we want to make sure that we don't touch the surface of the pad. So we're just checking for pad wear here. We're looking for uneven wear. You can see there's a little bit going on here, so we might have to sort something out of the alignment. This isn't too serious though. And then just make sure that there's enough material left on the pad. Shimano say you should replace at 2 mils of pad left, but you can usually run it down to about 1.5 and you should be okay. So the next thing we want to do is we just want to push these pistons back. You can see they're sticking out a bit there. Got your piston press or your plastic tie lever. And you just gently want to make sure that they go back in straight. One, and the other one back all the way in as well. So now we just want to put the pads back together again. One there, spring in between, second pad on top. So now we just want to pop the pads back in, make sure they're properly seated, locking pin back in, and that little tab back out so it doesn't pop out. Right, so what I've got here is some isopropyl alcohol and a clean rag. Remember I said oil and brakes are not friends. The alcohol is about the best stuff to take that off. Doesn't leave any residue. Make sure there's no oil there. This does mean you're going to have to get a couple of hard stops in before you go back out on the trail, because you've also taken some of the braking material off. Wheel back in. Make sure you line that disc up between the pads. Because we've reset the pistons, we're going to need to pump the lever a couple of times just to get the fluid back into the caliper, just to get it biting properly again. And then once we've got it there, then we spin it. And we make sure, oh, this one's actually lined up quite nicely. So there's no rubbing or anything there. The calipers you'll see are mounted on slots that give it a bit of movement that way. So the easiest way to start this process is just to grab a handful of brake and then very gently and sequentially tighten. Just a little bit at a time, because if you do the whole thing in one move, it might throw out the other end. So you just kind of nip it up, and then each side a little bit further, and then you check, give it a spin. See, there we go, that worked quite nicely this time. If it doesn't work, what you can do is just have a look at it from the top, and you'll see there's a little gap on either side. If you can see a little gap on either side of the rotor, you're good. And then the last one is we just want to torque these down 8 Newton meters on a brake bolt. Click and click. Final check, we're good to go. So that was the back brake. Front brake is exactly the same. Pads out, reset pistons, pads back in, clean rotor, wheel in, align, and you're done.
Thank you, Andrew, and thank you, Gerald. It was great to catch up with Gerald earlier on his home trails, and as you can imagine, we had quite a natter, and that you can see on our extra stuff playlist. Next week, we're back visiting Harry, and he's going to show us the fundamental bike skill, the throw. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing, and this old man in Lycra will hopefully see you next week.